Hello, hello. I have a really tough act to follow. The whole day has been so inspiring, and that was just like being in a beautiful, serene mood bath, right? So I'm going to try and bring you back to the final segment of the day. Care and sustainability. These topics are really close to my heart. I've spent most of my career working in the space of care, designing for care transformation and changing care outcomes. Not many people know I also have 2 degrees in environmental science and technology. So this really should be my game. But Arik and Xing, when they asked me to moderate this panel, they were a bit mean to me. They said, "We know this is your comfort zone, Tamsin, so we're mixing things up. We don't want you to look at this in the usual way. We want you to look at sustainability with a different lens. How do we design for care with a sustaining lens? How do we design so that we can sustain resonance with the people we're designing for? How do we sustain traction? How do we sustain adoption so that we get sustaining outcomes for self and for planet?" So I've got 3 really incredible speakers, fascinating speakers that I'm going to introduce you to shortly. We met up yesterday and on Monday to try to narrow down our topics of conversation. Oh, I'm going to do my best not to run over. But I also wanted to start by doing a little bit of an experiment. So I don't know how many of you are up for this. Some of you were here last year and you all ended up dancing in the audience, right? Now, you're welcome to do that if you wish. I'm more than happy with a little dancing. I might just keep that to my speakers. They're really worrying about this. Instead, what I might do is, quick show of hands. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Okay, great. How many of you got the app open on your phone right now? I'm giving you full permission now to get your phones out, open up LinkedIn, and see if you can find my name in LinkedIn, okay? I posted something a little while ago, about 15 minutes or so ago, and I want to see if we can all play the game of speculative design. Of course, this is a very impure approach. We can't really do a speculative design process, but I want us to think about what it would take if we started to tap on very different lenses and perspectives as we think about how we might be inspired to design for the future. We need to think about care and sustainability for the future because they're at the heart of life. If we don't care for ourselves, well, things happen, right? We think our bodies are invincible, but they break down. We spend the last 10 years of our life actually in declining health, slowly dying. Wow, that's not the way we want to go. But then let's look at it on a bigger level. What are we doing to the planet? Exactly the same things. We're scared to tackle these big, hairy, complex challenges. But we're designers and we shouldn't be so intimidated. So I want to start by asking you to go into LinkedIn, finding this post, which you maybe have done by now, and be inspired by what we've heard today. I loved the very first talks this morning, fungi as designers. Whoa, is that the first time you thought of that? Fire as designer. Not fire as enemy or destroyer, but fire as designer, shaping a new future. You're going to hear about, from my speakers, other sources of inspiration. I can tell you're online and my phone is buzzing like crazy. Wow, this is what it feels like to be an influencer, huh? Be inspired by those unusual sources, because this is what we're going to hear from for this final section, looking at care and sustainability, the unexpected sources of inspiration that may allow us to think about the future differently and may just open up opportunities for designing for unexpected and maybe uncertain futures. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to start by inviting my first 2 speakers on stage. They're dreading it because they don't know what I've got in store for them. They look so nervous in the front row. So please, please, give them a roaring welcome as I invite Lily and Chat on stage. Please, guys, come and join me. Oh, yeah, we're going to do a dance. Come. I can't dance much at the moment. Okay. Welcome to the living room. I just want to take a moment of adoration for the living room. Isn't it gorgeous? And I'm wondering if anyone will notice if I sneak off with some of the armchairs, but of course I won't. I have with me here Dr. Lily Yo and Chat Chuenrudeemol. Close enough?
Very close.
His surname is as bad as mine, right? I want to introduce you both to the audience, and then you're both going to share a little bit about your perspectives on this broad topic of care and sustainability. The reason I mention the living room is because we very often want to stay in our comfort zones, and I know we've talked about this quite a lot. The living room is like that ultimate comfort zone, right? I'm cozy here, I've got my little cushion, and the outside world is scary, and the future is really intimidating, so I'm going to stay in my cozy little comfort zone and let someone else worry about the future. And so I thought that juxtaposition was quite fascinating as we brave the complexity of the future from the comfort of the living room, right? So we have here Dr. Lily Yeo. She is the head of active aging at NTUC Health. It's been my great honor to have worked with her over the past year or so as we're exploring some concepts that she'll bring more to the front. Actually a chemist who had a career switch and decided she wanted to try to transform the way we age. So I'll leave you to share more on that in a moment, Lily. Before I go further, chat. Okay, Dawn is going to be really unhappy about what I might say now. I said, for the first time in my life, I'm inviting a bastard onto stage. He's a Bangkok bastard, and it's an official term. I'm not swearing, okay? So please don't tell my mum, or actually don't tell my kids. One of the amazing things in the many that Chat has done is that he's been looking at street architecture, urban architecture, and the way it's been scavenged in Bangkok from discarded items. But he's really brought this very ethnographic and empathetic lens to the way he builds and designs in Thailand and around the world. So we're going to have the chance to hear a little bit more about both of your work. But Lily, perhaps we could start with you, please, if you don't mind. Introduce us to your world and your lens on this topic. Let's welcome on stage, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily. So a bit about myself. I'm a young, aspiring gerontologist. So everyone laugh, right? So I'm young, okay? So as Tamsin mentioned, I had a career change. I make a career change, and I leave a sexy, high-flyer job to pursue a dream that I had when I was in my early 40s. So back then, the dream that I had is, because I'm always very grateful, to be born, to be raised in Singapore, and given with all kinds of opportunities whereby I could pursue my dream. And when I was young, in fact, I did pretty badly in chemistry, and yet I made a decision to pursue chemistry as my first and my second degree, and my family supported me. So, and I thought it's important, there's this very strong element in me that I thought it's important that I give back to the society. And that's the reason that with the gift of longevity, at the age of 53, I decided that I would give up my high-flyer job, went back to the university to restart, everything from ground zero. So I redesigned my career change. I still remember the day one when I was sitting in the lecture hall, totally different. With iPad, when I was studying, it was with blackboard, with chalk. And upon my graduation, I entered social sector, completely chaos, meeting with people from all walks of life. And in fact, that was a game changer for me. And I was, blessed with opportunity working with like-minded people with a shared vision of making Singapore an age-inclusive society whereby older adults can age well in the community. So I work in NTUC Health, and I lead the active aging centers. So right now I have 25 of them. And by Q1 next year, there will be 27. And for those people, like overseas friends and people have not heard about active aging centers, you can imagine that it is a vibrant community nodes, like playground for older adults who aged 60 and above. So this is a place whereby we offer cool programs, and we have all kinds of services that support older adults to be able to live healthily and having the support that needed, for them to age well in the community. So as a gerontologist, I love talking about aging. Definitely not a favorite topic for many people. But think about it, growing old. Growing old, it is pretty daunting, right? And this applies across all ages. If you talk to primary school students, they are worried about their future. And growing old is something that is very, very personal. Every one of us, we will have a different aging journey, growing old journey with different experience. And it is something that is personal. At the same time, it is full of uncertainty. It is highly complex. So that's the reason that, when we talk to older adults, very often they are worried about their future. So the nationwide, Singapore is becoming super aged as well. And these days, when you read the newspapers, we are always bombarded with a lot of statistics. So I have a few of them up here. And as you can see, Singapore expectancy, the overall expectancy of Singapore is 84.5 years. So we are among the top. But at the same time, we have, many of our people, and average is there's 10 years of we are living in an unhealthy life. So it's either living with disabilities, with mobility issues, or with chronic illnesses. So, and there are also other, another silent killer, that is gaining attention. And these are loneliness. And the third one that I have here is lonely death. So lonely death, in fact, this is, according to the statistic from World Health Organization, WHO, is on an annual basis, there are close to 900,000 people die annually, lonely death. There are lonely death out there. And that translates into 100 lonely deaths per hour. And this is actually a growing global health issues that affect many countries, not just Singapore alone. And with all this statistic, right, it is kind of understandable that people will get worried. And many of these statistics is also somehow associated, in terms of aging. And that's why when we talk to many of the older adults in the community, there is this general mindset, a self-limiting mindset that a tendency to think that, oh, I'm old already and I can't learn. I'm old already, and that's why there are many things that we can't do. So a lot of our work is related in terms of how we can change that mindset. So I always view that we are very lucky in Singapore in the sense that our nation actually gets rich before we get old. And that's why there are many possibilities out there that we can, as a nation, we can get our residents, prepared in terms of, as the nation gets super aged. I hope many of you, have watched this Netflix documentary, Blue Zone. And in this Blue Zone documentary, Singapore is being considered as the Blue Zone 2.0. So why 2.0? So the original Blue Zone countries, these are like the countries, for example, like Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, whereby their residents achieve healthy, good, long life and healthy life through their traditional lifestyle and diet. But for Singapore, it is different. And that's why we are called Blue Zone 2.0. So why we are different, right? So we talk about Singapore is a nation by design. So we achieve longevity, we achieve healthy lifestyle through policy, good policy implementation. and community engagement, and also the infrastructure that's specially designed, to promote healthy living. Traditionally, the way that health, is being managed, it was more of a reactive approach. When a person gets sick, you go to see a doctor, or you ended up in a hospital, and the GP, the clinician, they will repair you, and then you are back in health. But as the nation is getting old, definitely we can't continue the way that we are doing things. And that's why there's that prevention approach that we put in. And active aging centers are very much, part of this ecosystem. So out of the 25, active aging centers that I have, I have a small troop of soldiers, army. These are the unsung superhero that are working in the background. And we have a very diverse team with people coming, from all walks of life with very different past experience, education background experience. But all of us, none of us, we are designer by trade. But then we come together with this shared vision of we want to support senior age well in the community. And we design many programs to nudge our older adults to lead a healthy lifestyle. Healthy in a way that to stay active. And many of the programs that we put in is really to challenge the existing stereotype. For example, if you are old, you can't do dragon boat. If you are old, you are a digital dinosaur. You do not know how to do programming. And there are also groups of other adults that is extremely hard to reach. So these are the frail seniors, seniors who are socially isolated. And these are the 80-20 rules that we have, right? That we spend 80% of our effort trying to outreach to this group of seniors, that require additional support. And this is the one that we actually put in additional, we design programs hoping to get them out, programs that will resonate with them, programs that will make them want to come and engage with us and get out from, from their current state. So this is my last slide, and I would like to say that, aging, every one of us age. It doesn't matter whether you are a designer, you are architect, you are a gerontologist, we all aged. And at every stage of our life, there will be things that we can do and things that we can't do. This 2-year-old boy here, he's just learning how to converse. There is still a huge, vocabulary pool that he needs to learn. There's still a brand new world that he needs to, explore. And same thing, as a person is getting old, we should we should embrace the strength that we have, and forget about, accept the limitation that related to the decline that related to aging. So I truly believe that, to change the mindset of everyone in terms of looking at how we go old and how, we celebrate the gift of longevity rather than to view it as a decline, is the way forward, is one of the key elements that we can support the aging nation. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Lily. And fundamentally, at the heart of it, it's about challenging the assumptions and stereotypes so that we can find a breakthrough. And I think that's the perfect segue into what Chat is going to share with us now. Maybe, Chat, you'd like to take us through some of the wonderful stuff you've done. It brings a slightly different lens to a similar challenge. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Chat to share.
Hi, I've had such a great time getting to know you. Marathon, both of you, Tamsin and Lily, and talking about the aging population. I'll approach this in a more specific case, a rural aging population in Sakon Nakhon, which is a northeastern village in Thailand. If you don't know, Thailand is kind of composed of 4 regions. Central, where Bangkok is, southern, closer to Singapore. The northern regions, which is, you have Chiang Mai, and the northeastern region, which we call Isan, is the poorest region, or the rice bowl. And it's an incredibly rich cultural area, and this is where Sakon Nakhon village is, where I've worked. But it didn't start with work. I had been tagging along with my wife, who's a craft expert, who liked to go and actually work with the indigo textile community in Sakon Nakhon. So here, I think this is 2017, all our projects are 5 or 6 or 7 years old, even though they're small. It's a really important lesson in that I just want to do what I'm interested in, and it starts with curiosity. Sometimes I don't know if a project will evolve, but it started here, where we would go up and learn how to dye indigo. Here's my son. He's in college now, 2nd year, so it's been a while. And I start to discover beautiful things, beautiful people. We would find aunties and grannies creating textiles, weaving and dyeing. Not too many men, not too many young people. I saw more and more grannies. Grannies changing the colors of textiles in a natural way. But they were doing it isolated in the underbellies of our kampong, or Thai wooden house on stilts, because it's kind of sheltered from the sun. And I thought it was kind of a lonely situation, because they're making these beautiful crafts, these beautiful textiles that would be used in the rice fields. So I kept that in mind. And I found an incredible collaborator, because I had this project in my mind. I'm gonna work my way backwards. I had this project in my mind, and Kun Prat, Man Niyom Kar. You may know that all Thais have strange nicknames, right? So his name is Man. And he was an incredible textile indigo artist who would use not only indigo, but natural colors from barks and soil to create gradient series of textiles. And it started to get me beginning to think about a project I had in my mind called the Loom House. And this project, fortunately, found a home in Kun Man's beautiful forest garden right here. He's a lawyer turned artist, and wanted to grow a forest full of plants and trees and soil that would kind of turn into these natural dyes that would be dyed for his fabrics. And so the first thing I do is I always look at the things closest and the people closest around me. It may not be architecture, but the weaving aunties, the aunties who dyed and weave his special collection of gradient textiles. Here we have antique Gao and antique Git. So Tamsin mentioned bastard architecture. So it's a term I coined over a decade ago. Basically, I started a project called Bangkok Bastards, where I would measure and draw everyday things you see on the street, whether they're food carts, slums, love motels, because I felt like these everyday artifacts were simple solutions that everyday people would use to solve their problems. So I used the same technique going into the rural areas. I looked at the houses that the aunties were living in. So these are called ban tai tun, or ban ren tai, so houses lifted on stilts. And on the underbellies is where the weaving workshop would happen. So what we do is we draw, we draw, we draw. We draw to understand not only artifacts, but as we're drawing and measuring, we start to understand the problems and opportunities of the people who own these artifacts. So we don't, as an architect, I don't only draw architecture, I draw everything, the artifacts, the tools. So here, the loom, to me, is a beautiful thing. And I start to understand that this loom isn't just a tool, it's a small little micro-architecture, a house with 4 little columns, right? And then what happens is I always play with my mind, because I have these drawings, these artifacts that get my imagination running. Another beautiful tool here is a warping frame. It's a tool that weavers use to count. It gets very technical. A piece of fabric, when it's woven, is composed of warp and weft. basically a standing and a kind of horizontal threads. So this tool is used to arrange the threads even before you start to weave. So here you see Auntie Kit. She has to kind of walk almost a kilometer back and forth, and counting the length of the threads she needs to prepare before weaving. So this is a really interesting, beautiful tool that I just recorded. I don't know what I was going to do with it. Right? And eventually, once all these recordings are done, I start to create a new Frankenstein or a new bastard architecture that hopefully tries to create a new piece of architecture that solves a problem. I tried to create a workshop where the elderly or the aging weavers can come together and not be isolated in their homes and weave in this workshop. So there's kind of a process called bastardizing the bastard, where I combine the loom and the house. Because I went and talked to a carpenter. My wife actually wanted me to go up to Sakonnakhon and buy her a loom because she's really into weaving. And I went to a carpenter who was designing or building this house. And I said, where do I go to order a loom, a wooden loom? He said, oh, you just talk to me. I build houses, I build looms. They're both made of wood. Don't think too much. And so with that, I had an epiphany that a loom house could be created. So what we did was, as with all of my projects, there's never any budget, very little money. But fortunately, there are a lot of old salvaged wooden members from Thai houses that have been disassembled. So we use these salvaged columns and beams to create the new loom house. And as you will see, this structure is made up of 2 sets of 4 columns. I'm going to replay this again if I can. So you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So literally the columns are supported by 4 columns, and the 4 columns are spaced exactly like those of a loom, right? So you have 2 looms that conceptually and structurally support the house, as though textiles really support agriculture and rice culture. Okay, so these house columns, with all of their indentations and their cuts because they'd actually housed beams. So what we did was we acquired old loom parts to retrofit and hack into these scars of the old house columns to create a new loom module. So this module kind of accommodates a loom, and this module accommodates a tang, which is a local low-lying table that the locals always use to sleep or cook in a multi-purpose area. And not only that, because Kun Man is an expert in indigo, he created a new indigo paint so that we could paint the house in the same color that's used to dye the textiles. And so the weavers were able to use their paints and invite the community along to actually paint the house so that it became a community activity. So the loom house became the indigo loom house. And I'll show you just a small little video, because I think sound is very important. I wish you could smell the indigo, because that's another important aspect. The bottom level is used for wet functions like dyeing indigo. You're welcome to come to Thailand and do a workshop in this amazing place. And if you remember the warping frame? That's been integrated into the architecture so that the wall, you can count the threads on the wall. Thus, it becomes another type of bastard architecture. And because it's such a compact space, everything has to be condensed. The handrails are actually containers for yarns of spool as well. So we try to translate and combine how can a piece of architecture be turned into a loom or to accommodate textiles. And now they're the textile weavers are elevated to the top where they can enjoy views of the surrounding gardens rather than being isolated in the dark underbellies of the house. Okay. In addition, the weavers are now able to meet the public. She can now pass on her knowledge, teach others about weaving, and really expand her social arena. And from the loom house, like I said, I'm gonna tell this story backwards. I had this concept. It didn't begin with the loom house. It began with the loom condo 7 years ago. I had this idea of an alternate vision for rural Thailand or rural Southeast Asia. Because now, to be developed, you have to have big concrete high rises, you have to have street lights and concrete pavements. Rural areas need to become urbanized and modernized in order to be developed, which I don't agree with. I feel like you can develop the rural countryside, give it a density in a way that's very rooted to culture and to the landscape and to original way of life. So the loom condo was actually a dream I had in my mind that was composed of the same modules you saw in the loom house. These incredible modules that would be looms as well as tangs and even beds, because Thais usually just sleep on the platform with a mosquito net. So this was kind of a new residential model. And the loom condo would be able to accept guests like you who would come and be able to do a workshop to grow rice, to dye textiles, and to weave. And most importantly, we were doing this not just for the elderly of the rural areas in Thailand, like this granny right here. I talked to workers in Bangkok, right? Who mostly, a great deal of employees who are street food vendors, working in 7-Eleven, and kind of manual labor construction workers are from this area. They're migrant workers, but they really don't want to live in Bangkok that's polluted. They want to go home. So here are some quotes that I interviewed them. There's so much pollution in the city. I miss breathing in the fresh country air. Rice farming is hard work, but if I could go back to it, I would. I miss my daughter. She's 7 now. Growing up so fast. I should be there, but I can't. So these are real desires that people want to go back to the countryside. So I hope this isn't just for an aging society, but it's a hope for a return of the new generation back to rural areas where the culture is so rich. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chat. And I think I'm going to put my hand up to be the first to stay in the Loom Hotel when it launches. Absolutely beautiful. I want to start by going off piste. I know you're both dreading it. but from the conversation, it's fascinating to understand what drives you, because neither of you are driven by the solution. And I think it's one of the things that designers are sometimes caught in the trap of. They're given a brief and asked to produce a solution, an output. Lily, absolutely love this story. I was rubbish at chemistry at school, but I became a chemist, a PhD in chemistry, is it? Something drove you and again drove your career change. And Chat, in a similar way, it's you didn't go out to these communities looking for a solution or a job or a piece of work. You followed curiosity and then kind of allowed it to unravel. And Lily, you're not a designer, and Chat, you are. So do you think this is something we can all build? Do you think this kind of is a valuable way of looking at the world that we can all build? Or is it something that needs to be studied, or is it just chance? I don't know, any thoughts on that, guys? Because I was fascinated by your drive coming from unexpected places, but it drove you and it's driving you to do great things.
I think maybe for me, it is more of the desire to learn and also be, I'm always curious in terms of how people lead their life. So especially for those older adults, those who are vulnerable, how can we actually gather the community to support them. I think it's that part of curiosity. And also that problem-solving thing, because I see it as, it's just like there's a pebble, in your shoes that you want to do something about it. You want to improve it. So, and for us to problem solve, then we will need to listen, to the people working on the ground, to the person themselves, so that we are able to understand the whole issues. And definitely, we ourselves, we don't know everything. We don't know all the solutions. And that actually, require us out of our comfort zone to be, to have that willingness to partner, topic expert, to bring them in as part of the problem solving. So it's coming from that angle.
Yeah, thank you. And chat, it's slightly different for you, right? But
Yeah. Like I told you, I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not an activist. I'm not a social worker. And I don't want to claim to be. I'm an architect. And I want to use design to basically feel whatever I do. So it may sound small, so the Bangkok bastard drawings that I do, it's important for me to approach social issues through drawing. So it's a message for young people in here as well, because every day you guys are faced with the pressure to do great things. I mean, even with this conference, I told you my brain is on fire. So many incredible things, but it's also a lot of pressure for you to do something great. For me, I don't put that pressure on myself. I just draw things that to me have an interesting design element. Not just a social element. I won't draw anything that will just be good for the world. I'll draw something that has an interesting design element, and this interesting design has social issues threaded into it. And that's what I do, and I just focus on that. I draw it the best way that I can, that I could tell the story. And while I'm doing that, things naturally evolve. I talk to people. Ideas start to incubate. And I need to save time, at least a few months for this research. Because sometimes you're so rushed, everybody wants something due yesterday. You don't have time to think about what you think the best thing to do for you is, right? And so these drawings help incubate and then materialize ideas that how I want to do good in the world with architecture. But again, I never forget that I'm an architect. I think it's important to remind designers what their skills are.
I love that, and we've talked about it a lot, and we're going to come onto it. Before I do that, I must remember to do this. QR code, please. If you have questions, we'll come to them shortly, and I think we'll have the QR code soon up for Slido, unless you've already been able to put some in. No. Thank you. There we go. So whilst we chat, feel free to throw your questions in here. We all bring our own expertise to a situation. And I love the fact, Chat, you're very clear. I know what my strengths are. I'm not trying to pretend to be something I'm not. Both of you also talk about how you draw upon the strengths and the expertise of the people you're designing with. You don't talk about designing for them. You have that humility of designing with them. What do you really feel is the value of doing that? That value of, and maybe call it co-design. I'm also curious to think, is it co-design? Is it consultation? What are your thoughts on that? Maybe Chat, coming to you on that. When you went into that neighborhood and you really looked at that rural community and took videos without knowing what they might lead to.
I try not to name anything.
It's okay.
I think it's really important not to name anything, because it puts you in a box of that's a formula. So that's the first thing. So I draw and let things happen. And co-designing, I don't know if that works, because sometimes you talk to a local and ask them what they want. They say what they want, but that's not what they mean, right? So you have to find your own technique of studying this topic in a very deep way, and then you come up with options, a language that they can choose and have a conversation about. I think that's, to me, is co-designing, to have a 60% formulation or 70% and throw it to them. They could either reject it or whatever. They have something.
And you see the value in this, because we're particularly when we're talking about designing for a longer scale, is there value in bringing non-experts, albeit the users, the stakeholders? I don't know, Lily, is there value? And when we're talking about designing for healthier long lives, is there value in bringing in seniors, or should we really be relying on the experts?
Yeah, I think it involves all. So I was trying to reflect back, right? I remember when we started to conduct surveys, we outreach to older adults, trying to understand them better. And I remember when we were doing survey, in the area whereby there was no active aging centers. And we asked seniors there in terms of, like, what were your hobbies? What do you do, during your free time? Alarmingly is more than 70% of the seniors that they share with us that they don't have a hobby. So to them, it's like, I just stay at home, I watch television, I take afternoon nap. And there's, and if we talk about co-designing program with them at that stage, that would not be possible. But at the same time, when we survey those older adults who, make our active aging centers as their second home, then things get really exciting. They will tell you things that they love doing, things that they would love to learn. And this is also the reason that when, the way that when we design our active aging center, the key aspiration that we have is to design our center, to provide that safe space and also the brave space for people who, to attract people to come to our centers, whereby they feel safe to explore things that they never had a chance to do. So, it's coming from that angle.
So I love the way this is evolving, because I don't believe co-design is a survey. Anyone that's been in any of my programs know I've banned surveys, right? I think it's very hard for people to express what they haven't experienced and what might meet their future needs in particular. I can tell you about things that happened to me in the past and how it made me feel. Harder to say, projecting forward, what I would like. But both of you don't use survey approaches, really. You've tried them. You observe and you understand. So is it that we can reimagine the role of a designer or people with design approaches in these kind of environments where we help people today be able to articulate and imagine what might work for them in the future? And I know it's not, neither of you are really saying I'm futures designers, but that what you described there, Lily, was you're enabling people to imagine other possibilities, which then enabled them to participate in a form of co-design. And I think chat in a similar way, by engaging them to see how they currently do things and exploring and prototyping with them, you allow them then to imagine other possibilities. So might this be the approach that's more relevant going forward when we think designing for more sustaining outcomes?
Yeah, and the other thing that I'm thinking, right, it is also not just older adults. Because if we talk about aging society, aging nation, right, we require the whole village to come together to support senior, to age well in the community. And that the whole ecosystem include community partners. It also include our own staff. So how can we encourage our staff, our partners to come together to innovate, new programs that can better support older adults? And bear in mind that the demographic of older adults are changing. The pioneer generations versus the Metaga, all this are changing. So how can we provide that space whereby people are willing to experiment and people have the courage to do things that are different from the traditional way of doing? And most importantly is people can accept failure, that look at, to celebrate imperfection rather than driving, towards perfection.
To me, I try to approach things and not try to find a universal way of doing it as well, because let's look at your aging society and my aging society. Your aging society, they have families who help take care of them. They've retired?
Many
pretty much. my aunties still want to work until they're 90. I still
have
got to
that
make
as well.
money,
Yeah.
bro. So they don't want to lie around.
Yeah.
They still want to weave.
Yeah.
They said, I have a quota. Kun Man wants me to do 5 textiles, and they love it. So this working past retirement in Thailand is different. So if you are very focused on the task at hand, and for me, I try not to look at what the general rule says. I just look at what's ahead of me and in front of me, because it's a whole different world.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into, thank you guys, you've got some really good questions in here. So we're going to go off piste now. Okay, let's check that Slido is working nicely. Hopefully, the question will come up shortly, but I will read it out. It seems like observation and intuition has been a singular thread between the two speakers' work. In an age where quantitative data rules, how might we build our muscle to trust our gut and listen more? And I know in some of our earlier conversations, we've talked about leaning into intuition. So yeah, either of you have any thoughts on this? How do we have the bravery to lean into something that's not scientifically proven?
Yes, you have to be brave.
There you go. Thank you. Next.
No, let me explain that.
Yeah.
Being brave means you can't go on the internet and try to look for solutions that are already made. It means you go in there with zero kind of presumptions, because what you'll find out is going to be completely surprising. But if you go in there with too rigid of strategy, then you're going to come out with a somewhat cookie cutter solution and won't really solve a problem at all. So it's hard, because we're trained to have a safety net. You don't want to fail when you're embarking on a project, right? And so you always feel like, I got to be ready. And to tell yourself that, don't prepare at all. Just go in there with a frame of mind that's free-flowing. I've had to train myself to think that way. It was scary. Now it's a drug that I love. I don't want to know anything about this. Go in there. I don't want to read about anything. I just want to go talk to them, and then let things evolve organically. And great things, unique things, globally significant things will happen at the very local, minuscule level.
Yeah, and I think that comfort with divergence and emergence are one of the themes that actually I think will also come out in the next conversation. That really is the key to designing in an uncertain future. Lily, any other thoughts on that, how we get that bravery in a data-driven world?
Definitely need to be brave. So when I first joined NTUC Health, in fact, the first thing that I did is digitalization transformation. So we collect tons of data. I think having data, it helps to guide decision, but not all decision is based on data. So the example that I can think of, right, is when we are trying to engage male uncles, older adults. So these are the groups of older adults who, most of the time it's very difficult to attract them to come to active aging centers. Yeah. And if we look at the data, number one is they hardly got any data. And how do we design programs that are attractive enough to get, the male uncles to come to our center? And if we just purely based on attendance data, or thinking of funder requirement that, more keen in terms of organizing big events that you can attract many seniors, to come for the social programs. By looking at the data, you may jump into a conclusion that is not worth making. But then there's still this mission that, that we have. So collecting data, definitely, we do a lot, and we look at the data, and we make use of the data to help us in terms of better reach out, to those seniors, in need, and to see pockets of area whereby we can do better. But at the same time, there are also many elements that we have to believe in what we are doing. And data, we will have to cast it aside. Actually,
there's a kind of related question here. which I've just put up on the screen, and maybe if there's anything more to add on it. When you take on a project, do you move forward? This is a very practical Singaporean question. Do you move forward without first considering feasibility and cost? Or do you weigh those factors beforehand? And do these considerations influence how strongly you believe in the idea or the pursuit of it? So it does relate to that uncertainty phase, right? I work a lot in that space of being very comfortable early on, say, let's understand what's going on before we delve in on solutioning. But many people are uncomfortable, particularly if they think, well, hang on, how will this be funded? Who's paying? And who's going to pay for all that indulgent exploration? So what are your thoughts on that, guys? Where do you start and how do you persuade people?
I had 17,000 Singapore dollars. I had a budget.
So you had a starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had to find money to fund this project myself.
And is it that you're able to get budget for what is often seen as an indulgent exploration phase? Or are people paying just for the end piece?
No, the indulgent exploration phase comes out of my own pocket.
Yeah. Which is a shame, right?
It's so funded. Nobody's going to pay for that.
Yeah.
And I've had to work my practice with interns and studios to get the research to the point where it's ripe.
Yeah.
And then the right person comes in, Kun Man. It's really also, at first I thought it was by chance, but it's now a strategy. Projects, interests that I'm interested in, I do whatever I can to explore so that when the person comes in or the funder comes in, I have 50% of the information. I don't have to sell them anything. I have a graphic representation of the ideas I want to explore.
Yeah.
So these little prototypes are leading to other bigger projects, prototypes. Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating, Lily. I mean, how does it a different angle you're coming from, and luckily not having to look for funding in the same way.
Yeah, so for active aging centers, we get the funding from MOH, Ministry of Health, through AIC, Agency of Integrated Care. So definitely the budget has been increased over the year, but definitely it is not enough. And if we talk about, these are taxpayer money, definitely we need to spend it, very prudently. And I like to look at it, from the angle of impact business. So P&L definitely is very important. And that's why we watch our budget very, very carefully. And every project that we decide to take on it got to go through, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of thinking process that is being put into. But I do think that in Singapore, I still strongly believe that if one have good idea that, that this project is going to create a positive impact to the community, we are still able to get funding, and I like to, in fact, very often I share with my partners that I'm a professional beggar. I will come up with ideas and I will approach different companies, agencies, asking, for support. And very often is, as you just mentioned, is generate that prototype to prove, that this thing worthwhile. So, and that is what we do in our center.
Can I clarify? I don't want people to kind of misunderstand that I pay it out of my own pocket to do research. You can be very disciplined in your daily life. I wake up at 7. I take an hour to sketch and clarify my ideas. If I see a bastard, I can sketch it within 1 hour. I pass it to my employee. She or he can take a day or two to do the 3D model. It's very fast. If you're passionate about something, you'll do it fast because you know exactly what to do. And to me, it's not a dent in our office, right? Because it's done very efficiently and smartly. Yeah.
So yes, Lily, please.
Tamsin, there's also one thing that I would like to add, right? Is never underestimate the power of the community. Every active aging centers that we only have a very small number of staff, maybe about 4. And on average, we are expected to serve, like a service boundary with 2,500 older adults. And I think that realization of we can't do everything ourselves is very important. And that's why we, every staff that we have we need to have this willingness to partner, this ability, to gather the community together. And there are many talent out there in the community. And they will bring in, their talent, their strength. And in fact, many of our programs are actually run by interest group, by volunteers. Yeah.
I think I realize we've just perfectly finished here. Thank you, Lily, for summarizing that. Follow your passion, but do it with discipline. It's not just going to be hearts and flowers. You've got to strive through, and don't underestimate the power of your community, your stakeholders. It overcomes our blind spots, it gets buy-in, and really we can't do it all ourselves as we design into the future. Thank you so much, Chat Lily. It's been such a joy. We didn't run out of time, but we could have spoken a lot longer. Please join me in thanking both our speakers here. Thank you, guys. Thank you.